Welcome to the Ambiguous Show, a podcast for those who live in the in-between. I am your host, Ashley Blake. Hello. It is May. Man, how did it get to here? It's May. Wow. Happy Asian Pacific Heritage Month. We love you all. It's a new week. There's just so much going on. Just a little life update. I got my second vaccine last week. Yay. But it did pretty much shut me down for the entire week. So I am just now semi-functional and trying to catch up on all of the things. And so the episode that I had prepared for today is actually going to get pushed back a week, just because I didn't have enough time, with my whole brain and all of that. So no worries, guys. It's still coming. But yeah, man, I watched in on a conference 2 weeks ago. And so I was going through some different projects that I worked on. I used to be a creative director. And so I was just going through my old projects and seeing some of the things, exploring like things that I really liked doing and, other stuff. I was working on a script, so I was trying to get some ideas out. But I came across the time I was a realtor. Yeah, really, your girls had so many jobs. I was a realtor for a time. And my tagline for all of my branding was finding the feeling of home. Which was actually really interesting because that's kind of like a thing that's been reoccurring recently, this idea of finding home, which, it's always been tricky for me. I've never exactly been where I wanted to be during the time that I'm there. I moved for a large chunk of my life. I was a compulsive mover. And so either moved every year or every 2 years. I've lived in a lot of different places. And I've loved doing that. There are certain places that I really just loved being in. And the timing just didn't align with everything else going on in my life. And there's even places that I would love to live currently that just obviously that's not working out with my current life. And for someone that moved around so much and has been split between so many different cultures and so many different influences, even when you look at, like city life versus suburbia versus, living off of the land, I've experienced so much, which I think is is a blessing. But at the same time, it's kind of caused this issue where I don't really have a place to associate home to. And I love the idea of home. Like when you read about it in books or when you see a movie and there's this theme of home, or when people sing about it, right? In songs, like it just seems like something you want to have. And I've always been like, if I just move to the right place, or if I just have this one kind of house specifically, or if I have this, and that, and, 17 things on a list, then I'll have home or feel at home. And, those are all really great thoughts. But then, like, what do you do when you find yourself in a spot you didn't expect to be in? And you keep holding out like, oh yeah, but like, just one day I'll get to the list. And then 6 years later, you're still here. I've lived here in this house for 6 years now. I'm not sure how the pieces in my life added up to getting here. And I'm not sure how the pieces in my life added up to still be here 6 years later. But today I'm going to raise some questions about what even is home. But first, here's a sponsor or something.
This podcast was created with Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to get started in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
So there are questions that have been reoccurring in my mind and in my thought process of, like, what is my discontent about my current space in life? What are deep roots to a land or to a place? And what do you do if you don't have them? If you didn't grow up attached to a certain location or to a certain even idea of what home would look like, how is it that we can live well in an unexpected place or in a time or place in life that just wasn't necessarily our first choice? I don't know. Maybe it's because we're not well connected to a lineage. Maybe it's because we're connected to so many cultures that we don't necessarily have one that's our own. What does it look like to create our own traditions? There's a song that I released last year called These Days, and one of the lyrics that I was really passionate about was making our own way. We're going to make our own way. And that's been something that's been pretty consistent in my life just because of my natural personality doesn't fit into anywhere. And when you don't fit anywhere over time, you just kind of learn to, if you're going to keep moving forward, it's going to be on a path that doesn't exist yet. Not necessarily because you're like some brave pioneer, but just because you're you living your life and your life makes no sense. Just for a setup, I'm a 3 wing 4 on the Enneagram. So I'm kind of compulsive about certain things as far as like accomplishment and productivity. And so some of these things that I'll say will highlight that compulsiveness. And if you don't get that, like totally, you don't have to, like you're probably a healthier functioning person. But yeah, I've had a lot of anxiety that my life has not gone according to plan. Like I'm totally the person that shows up to the vision boarding party like really serious. Like everyone else is drinking wine and I'm like, nah, we are going after it. Like I am about to put up everything in my heart's desires and we're going to attach like a spreadsheet with the 5-year plan of how to attain these things. I love planning. I love planning. It makes me so happy. I love meetings. I love organization. I love the aisle at Target that only sells you like sticky pads and like tabs and color coordinated things. I love to plan. But I also find extreme frustration when things aren't going to plan. Now, I can say at this point in my life, I would like to brag on myself that I am a semi-professional pivoter at this point. But sometimes when you like check in with yourself, like you're like, oh, it's May of 2021. And then you like glance over at the vision board and you're like, this is not where we expect it to be. Oh no. Yeah, it's like, wow, I'm so grateful for where I am in life. I'm so grateful for what I have. I love my family. I love so much about my life. But when you glance back at the board and you think, how did this happen? Sometimes it's a little discouraging, to be honest. A little bit about this house. It's a really old, like we're not actually sure what year it was built because there's like not a record. But like definitely before 1950. It's a really old house that doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. Like, there's so many doors. It's a house of doors. I make a joke that every time we get something delivered to the house, which is new for us, by the way, in like the last 3 months, because we live kind of in the middle of nowhere and no one would deliver anything here. But now they do, but they are super confused every time they come because it's like, guess the door that they dropped the deliveries at. It's never the same door, and it never makes sense because it's never like, the most adjacent door. It's never the closest door to where a car would pull in, but sure. But yeah, this house, it's on like an acre of land, which is really nice. And when we bought this house 6 years ago, I like had it in my mind that I was gonna like be a homesteader. Like I just knew there was like this shed thing that I was gonna convert into a chicken coop and like goats and like I didn't know a lot. I just had watched like at that season in my life, like I watched a lot of like the Pioneer Woman and like other stuff, and I was just like, I want to grow my own food. I want to bake my own things. Like, I'm just going to do it. And for the most part in life, up until that point, anything I have ever tried has just been like at least averagely successful. Like, there's nothing that I really just bombed, but I like bombed country life. Like, I had no idea or understanding of anything at all. It's really interesting, but the image of being self sufficient and like just being in control was so appealing to me. Now, that transition from Harlem to the middle of nowhere in North Carolina, that is a really bold move. And just like believing I knew what I was doing, that was cute. Really cute. I think that I love that I have experienced so many facets of living in life, just based on my insane personality. But it makes it really hard to buy a home or like land because there's always like three different parts of my personality that are like, oh no, you definitely need to live like in a loft apartment, like in a city. And then there's part of me that's like, you need land, okay? Because you need space to make every creative choice you ever want to make. And then there's another part of me that's like, can you just like live an easy life where like you just do moderate things, like just the basic. Can you just be basic? It's just hard to make decisions because I always want to do so many different things, and like making a long-term commitment like a house is funny that I did. But yeah, I didn't do nearly enough research before coming here. And then I didn't actually think through like what are my actual strengths and like what are things that I like doing on a daily basis. Because if anyone has ever had a garden, like a significant sized garden, you can't you can't just leave your garden for extended periods of time. Like it changes constantly. If you're not checking it all the time, yeah, it's just gonna be destroyed for the most part. I had no idea. I didn't even know what plants looked like when you grew them. I literally threw seeds out in the ground and then was like, is this a weed or is it a plant? Like what does I remember trying to plant potatoes, but I didn't know what they looked like or like how they grew or like how you're supposed to get them out of the ground once they grew. I knew literally nothing.
I knew nothing.
This is the point of the day where the tractors go home and they make lots of noise. In case you didn't know, I'm that one friend that treats life as a constant musical and is always singing nonsense. Yeah, it's just hilarious. I thought you could just like build stuff and without knowing like how many tools were necessary, how, how expensive tools are. Like how many tools an average person in a country living life has. And I had like a hammer. But even though I knew absolutely nothing and failed so hard for the first few years of living here, literally every project, I just looked at this house and was like, oh, yes, I can. The artist in me is like, oh, I can make it beautiful. I can do so many things here. And I just had no skill nor tools to do such. But I still feel like there was always this importance of land, like having a place in the world that's your own, and what that means in legacy, like in long-term vision, how to steward that well, how to steward the earth well, but also how to steward like this place in life that you find yourself in. I spent years resenting this old house. Not the house itself, but like how far away it is from town, how no one comes out here to visit, like the basics that I would feel necessary in life, like adjacency to a dance studio or to a music studio or to a concert, or the fact that if I get done with a gig and it's, in a city that should be close to me, I still might be driving home at 3 o'clock in the morning. That is a lot of my life, driving. How far away it is from good food. Like food that is good. Like I drive an hour to eat. Yeah, I just kept hoping for the day that I would be somewhere else that like made sense to me. Joke's on me. I mean, there are just so many reasons that it makes sense to stay. But I definitely have had to walk through the process of changing my mindset that I needed to find home while dismissing the entire fact that I have the authority to create what home is to me. So then I had to ask myself a series of other questions like, what is it about the places that have influenced me the most that I love so much? And what is it behind those feelings? Like, is it smell, sights, the security, the adventure? Is it possible to recreate those? I mean, like within my means. I don't have a never-ending supply of monies. But yeah, like how do I draw out the parts of myself and the experiences that are the closest to my heart? How do I encourage an environment that still feels like those things, even if they're incredibly far away? And I don't mean like, how do I make a super fancy house? Or how do I make like a really comfortable house that's like pretty? I don't mean those things, even though I am like the number one advocate for beautiful things just bring joy. But like, I'm also not saying like, oh, have $1 million house. That's just like not realistic at all to me. But I do long for a place that offers a certain kind of peace when you walk into it. Like there are certain places, like if you have a best friend's apartment or a place that you had a really great experience at that just makes you feel so many wondrous things. Or even the thought. There's a thought of a place, of a park that I used to go in Kazakhstan, and it just makes me so happy to think of it. I want to feel like that when I think about my house in any season of life, whether it's this house or another house. Like just the idea that there is a place that you can go back to that feels like that. It feels really important. And when I started asking these questions, of course, like the first things to mind are like, well, who was there when I was experiencing these things? Oh, well, what was it about living in New York? Well, a good chunk of that was the people who were in my life. I mean, I do love New York as a city in general, but like, I obviously think towards all of the people who were influential in those memories. And as much as I would like to, I can't just recreate them being at my house, like, and invite every person that I love to live in my house with me. That would be an interesting reality TV show. Obviously, not the case, but I wonder. I wonder if being clear on the essence of what made those times with those people valuable, like what it was that made those walls feel alive. I wonder if we could recreate those aspects so that when people walk in these doors, that they could feel that same energy and that same embrace. That's a thought that I've been pondering lately. And to be honest, when I think about all of the places that I've lived and the places that I've loved living in, probably the biggest thing that ties them all together is the sense of wonder. This is probably why I love living in a city versus suburbia or elsewhere. Just because my experience in city life was constant wonder. Everything's changing every day. You can meet someone new literally every second. I was constantly being introduced to new things and new places and new people. And honestly, I never felt the need to have deep roots because there was always a guarantee that something else was right around the corner. And I think that for me, like the transient life, not really like buying real furniture because you know that whatever doesn't fit in the SUV or whatever doesn't fit in the boxes that can get on the plane is not coming with you. There's something about that makes you like not really try that hard when it comes to like just like the idea of the word settling down, like just finding a place. There's something about that doesn't actually sit right inside of me. But I'm thinking now in this sense, how can I bring those senses of wonder to this land that I'm in now? Because the reality is that I'm here for this moment in time for a reason. I'm here in this moment in time, whether I like it or not. So why not just like it, you know? And I want to like it. So this season I've been thinking about what is exciting or what can bring wonder. And I've been doing a lot of work in the garden this year. I've had a garden here every year. Most of them were failures, or most of them just got out of hand. There's one thing about me of having like the freelancer lifestyle. I don't really know what my schedule is going to be like. I don't know how much I'm going to be home or how much I'm going to be working or when, where, why, or how. I don't have any of those questions asked. And if I get pulled away for a certain period of time, hi tractor. If I get pulled away, when you come back to the garden after, it depends on what time in the season it is. But if it's been 3 or 4 days, sometimes a whole crop can go out in 3 or 4 days. Sometimes there's an entirely new infestation that you didn't know about. Sometimes, it just gets too hot and things go to seed or die. So much can change in very short periods of time. And so, yeah, I don't think I knew up into this year how much effort actually would go into taking care of an actual garden space, like living plants. And also, I didn't know that I really connected the dots on like plant what excites you, like bringing in varieties. So like one thing I used to do is like just plant like whatever was popular to plant in this area because that's like what's at Home Depot. And this year I've actually really done a lot of research into buying seeds for varieties that I want to grow. So I have a bunch of things that I'm really excited about this year that I've never seen grow before firsthand, or that I just am excited to eat because let's be real, I am all about the food. So like the daikon radishes that are out there that are thriving right now, I'm so excited about. And their flowers, I just found out that you can eat their flowers and it supposedly tastes like radishes as well. So like, that makes me so happy. Something that makes me really happy is making dinner and just going outside and grabbing it, grabbing whatever it is that you're making. That is something that is really beautiful to me, which I couldn't do when my garden was failing the first 3 years. But now, yeah, I've been doing a lot of work out there to creating garden space that's beautiful. Which plants are beautiful on their own, but sometimes they can look raggedy sometimes when you're not good at taking care of them. But I've been really purposeful and working really hard to make that space really fruitful, but also just thoughtful as well, I think. Sectioning out the land and trying to use it in better ways. Like, we have a good deal of space, but I don't think we've ever really used it properly or used it well. I'm trying to take those things in consideration. And that sense of wonder where like things changing every day. I just remember walking down the streets and it would make me so happy. Well, maybe now I can walk through my garden and that can make me happy, you know? In the same kind of sense that plants change overnight. Things change overnight. Out there, it's really kind of crazy, but it's really kind of special too. And just trying to implement those things that I think are pretty wondrous, like make more of them, finding more varieties that I think are really interesting or are unique to here, or adding elements that remind me of places that I've loved. I don't know, man. I think filling the house with artists that really influence my soul. There's an artist I love, Jury. She's incredible. Juuri. I have her painting. I have her artwork in every room of my house, and it has honestly changed my whole mood. Like every day, I gain strength every day that I look at her work. That's not an exaggeration, and I am known to exaggerate, but this is like 100% real. Like, it has really changed my heart. Because, art, man, y'all don't even, art is incredible. Incredible. Anyways, but yeah, things like that are like, using a smaller budget so that one day I can get back out to the places that I want to go. Having pictures out and open for remembering. Like, I'm really big on remembering right now. I think that I don't have the strongest memory and often forget. I forget the places that I've loved and the things that I've seen and the things that make my heart like set on fire. Remembering those things. Remembering these four walls aren't all like it for me. I think it's been really weird in the pandemic because I've spent more time at home than I've ever spent anywhere in life. And it feels like a little trapping. And mentally, that's really weird for a dreamer. Like I want to like be thinking about what goes next and where can I go. And I love planes. I'm obsessed with planes. I grew up on planes. I love them. Going somewhere constantly. And then like this last year of none of that and being like really kind of enclosed dream-wise. Like being kind of afraid to dream because you don't want to be too disappointed. And especially as artists, like a lot of our work was canceled last year. I mean, I'm really lucky. I've had really consistent work this whole time, but still it's been hard being feeling enclosed and literally being enclosed in a place that already is like questionable to you. But I'm just sharing because I'm learning to be okay that this home isn't a building that's like the norm. Most people probably wouldn't want it. But I've lost enough time chasing other people's dreams just to be cool. And there's something that's really special here. And again, I keep having to remind myself that I'm actually in charge of creating the magic. So if it feels like being trapped or something like that, I have control to change that. And so really it's more about being really intentional about those things, capturing those things that set your heart on fire and bringing them into the space you want to call home, even if it's just the remembrance of people that have moved your heart. I just really, this pursuit of living well, I think is something that's a big deal to me right now. And I guess I just wanted to share in case there's anyone who's been frustrated in this last year in a similar weird place that feels really disconnected in like where you are and where you've been hoping to be. Yeah, I'm hoping that you can find a way to love this season in your life. Anyways, wherever you are. And I hope that you can be intentional about finding what fills you up and put more of it in your life. All right, y'all. My things no one pays us to love. I need to come up with a better singing for that. Alexis Nicole, the Black Forager. If you have not stumbled upon her on the Instagram, TikTok worlds, you need to find her. I binge watched like most of her videos in one day. She's really, really interesting to me. She basically talks about foraging in your own city. So for people who may not have a garden or even who have a garden, I know I have just gone rampant on weeds. Like I am a person where if I don't understand what's happening, it stresses me out. So I just kill it all. And she spends a lot of her time and energy just educating people on what certain plants are, what they look like, what you can do with them, if you can eat them, if they're dangerous, like where to look for these things, like how to, wow. I was just amazed, impressed, and had so much to learn because the idea of just going outside and eating or, making tea out of something that looks super foreign to me because I don't know what it is or where it came from. Again, y'all, I have so much to learn being out here in these fields. But yeah, check her out. I love what she is doing. Also, she sings a bunch, which makes me really happy. Anyways, all right, y'all. If you guys have questions, stories, shout outs, send them to hello@moida.co, hello@moida.co. Or you can leave a voice message on our Anchor page and we can respond to it. As always, support the podcast and our mission through our Anchor page. You can give as little as $1 a month. It's anchor.fm/The Ambiguous Show. You can also help out by subscribing to the podcast, leaving us a 5-star review, and connecting with us on Instagram @The Ambiguous Show. This podcast is produced by Moida, where creativity gathers and worlds collide. Music brought to you by Lay. And thank you for listening, friends. And remember, you are exactly who you need to be.